Thanks. Hi, everyone. I hope you've all had a great Write the Doc so far. I'm Janine. I'm a recovering documentation manager, and I have the pleasure of being one of your Slack mods. Thanks for letting me talk today. It's the first time I've ever been able to attend Write the Docs, and I am so pleasantly surprised to have this opportunity. I am so pleasantly surprised that I don't have any slides for you today, so it's just this. I apologize in advance. Today I wanted to take you on a short foray into the world of sociolinguistics, which looks at the ways that different people with different backgrounds use language. In this field, there are two ways of looking at language, and they're called prescriptivism and descriptivism. Prescriptivism is objective. It means strict adhesion to the strunk and white kinds of rules that you would have learned in school. No conjunctions at the beginnings of your sentences, no prepositions at the ends. It says that there is one correct way to write and talk, and that also means that there's a wrong way. Descriptivism, on the other hand, is the opposite. It's subjective, and it means that getting the point across from one human brain to another without judgment on how that happens. And while it's our job as documentarians to follow the rules, if you've seen me in Slack, you know I love a style guide. We want to make sure that at the end of the day, we're putting value on making sure we get the point across instead of adhering so strictly to the rules that we actually lose quality in our communication. There are a few ways that this can happen. One way is that language changes as people use it, so the grammatical rules that academics like to publish go out of date over time. Maybe you've heard of the old rule that you weren't supposed to start a sentence with the word hopefully, and there was a lot of debate about using phrases like, "it is to be hoped that," instead. That sounds kind of alien and overly formal to me, and it might to you too. And it's because it doesn't reflect the way that people really talk in real life. And because we're talking to other humans, we want to use that as our measuring stick about whether our language is successful. Another area in which the rules lose importance is when we think about inclusion. This is something that's very obviously important at Write the Docs, and it should be. It's important to think about where those rules come from. Historically, it's been the people who've had the most privilege and who have been in charge of educational institutions who've decided what's grammatical and what isn't. And that puts people who already suffer from systemic disadvantages at further disadvantage. As an example, under prescriptivism, African American Vernacular English, or AVE, was considered not to be a proper dialect of English because it didn't follow the rules of conventional or white-defined English. But like any other language, it has a set vocabulary and it has grammar rules. So under descriptivism, we know it's a perfectly valid dialect, and thus we avoid making judgments about the people who use it. The idea of prescriptivism is inherently hierarchical because it says that some constructions are more correct than others. In that sphere, language doesn't change, people just get it wrong in different ways. But when you think descriptively about language instead, anything I say that gets the point across to you is valid because it's language that did its job. This can be annoying sometimes. I've been guilty of giving the side eye to when people say literally when they mean figuratively. And it can be scary if it suddenly feels like you aren't dealing with rules about what's right and what's wrong. But language evolves for a reason because people use it differently over time. And it's important to move with it rather than to be left behind. So when you're writing and editing in the future, I encourage you, think about whether the point is getting across and less about the specific grammar rules. Those rules can be really helpful when you're pinning down, say, why a sentence doesn't make sense, but they have limited value in and of themselves. And when someone uses a grammatical construction that you're not familiar with or that doesn't seem right for the context, the much maligned ain't comes to mind. Even if you do edit it out, try not to think of it as less. Oftentimes, when we edit out things like that, it's because we're writing for a specific context. It's still okay to write to that context. We do still need rules. I swear a lot in real life, and I get that I'm probably going to get a stern talking to if I write the documentation the way I talk. All I'm saying here is to be aware of when invoking the rules helps, and to be aware of the fact that it can also hurt. With a descriptive approach to language, we can look at language, and therefore the people using it, more equally. When you think descriptively about language, everyone just talks the way they talk, and we don't bring in issues like sexism, like when people use vocal fry, specifically women. I use it a lot, but a lot of men do too, or racism or classism. We should always think of our readers as human, and this is a great way to start. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this with you, and thank you for listening. I love talking about this, so please message me if you have any questions. Have a great rest of your day.